chill pump going on, and I'm going to do certain projects, certain environmental pumps, counting on the plant coalition for inviting me here this evening. During the campaign was the last time I spoke here in the auditorium and talked a little bit about drug use. And that's what they've asked me to talk about here today, in the role of the judiciary. I would say that probably the most serious problem facing our country, our county, and our young people is alcohol and drug use. And what happens when a young person, young people are growing up, and part of growing up is trying things and experimenting. Fortunately, when I was growing up, we didn't have addictive drugs around in the quantities that are present here. And what young people don't understand is if they try an addictive drug like cocaine or methamphetamine or prescription drugs, they get a good feeling from that. And that results in addiction. And addiction, what happens when you become addicted? Your brain secretes something called dopamine. And some of this stuff is technical, and I don't really know that much about it. But it gives you a good feeling. And you feel good for a while, but then that good feeling goes away. And your brain remembers that good feeling. And so that's all you think about is that good feeling. And so you continue to use this addictive drug. And you don't care anymore about your family. You don't care anymore about school, about your grades. You don't care about your future. You don't care about anything but that drug. So what you have is a young person that becomes addicted either to alcohol or drugs. They don't want to go to school, so they quit school. So they have no education. They have no vocation. It means they don't have a job. And they're an addict. And that addiction leads to crime because you don't have a future. You can't get a job because you don't have an education. You don't have any skills. You can't hold a job for any period of time. So the addiction is a real problem. That's what we deal with. That's what I dealt with today at hearings all day long. 90% of the people that are incarcerated now have an underlying substance abuse problem. And I think it's wonderful that you all are here to try to prevent the use of drugs. Prevent the use of drugs. What are we going to do in school? How do we prevent it? I see it on the back end. And when you commit a crime as a juvenile, maximum that I can give you is commit you to the Department of Juvenile Services until you're age 21. That's for a crime you commit. If it's a status offense, like you quit going to school or you're incorrigible, what that means is you don't listen to your parents and you don't come home at night and whatever, I can refer you to the Department of Health and Human Resources for services, which may include out-of-home treatment. And so I'm on the other end. You're on the right side of it, preventing illegal drug and alcohol abuse. Well, how are we going to do that? There's so many problems. I think the way to address these problems, or one of the things we have, is most of the parents have to work. And so the kids come home from school, and they're by themselves. Kids can't raise themselves. We've taken away from the schools the authority to sanction people, young people. When I was going to school, if you did something wrong, they had a paddle. And maybe that's not the right thing to do, but young people spend the majority of their time in school. You spend about 8 hours in school. You spend 8 hours sleeping, so that's 16 hours. So you have another 8 hours. Maybe you're with your parents But most of the time, or your parents are probably not home because they have to work. And on top of everything else, if your parents have a drug problem, I will tell you, I send a lot of young people through day school, and they have a structured environment. And the children and the young people that I send there, they do very well. They follow the program, they do well in school, they're in that program for a period of time, and of course I can't keep them there forever. And then they're released, they go home, back to their home environment, and they're exposed to the things that they were exposed to that put them in there, and so they're going to reoffend. That's what happens with drug addicts and alcoholics. They reoffend because it changes changes your brain. It actually makes changes in your brain. And so until you are off drugs for a period of time, I would say at least a year, you're not going to be making the right decisions. You're not going to be thinking about your future. And so it's absolutely the worst problem in this country. In this county alone, I think our dropout rate is 20%. Is that correct? Somewhere around 20%? 20%. That 20%, most of it is drug related. So we have a tremendous problem in this country with drugs and alcohol. How are we going to solve it? I think we all have to get together, as J.L. said. We have to think outside the box. We have to come up with some new ideas. And young people, the teen court helps. You have to cooperate too. I know there's a lot of pressure on you not to say anything about this one or that one. But we have to stop this drug use. Because really it's a death sentence for you young people if you become addicted. If you can't get off of those drugs, you're going to die from them. So I hope I scared the crap out of you. And I'm going to let, I don't know who's next on the agenda, speak.